So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sharon Whiteman, and I just love being here every Saturday with Diana Hunter and Gary Knapp. And we bring together global speakers on various topics and issues important to our region, important to our life, our lifestyle, our mission. And today we're talking all about men's health and how the Manatech technology can assist. Diana did some research for this call. And a quote that she's offered us is Australian men are more likely to get sick from serious health problems than women, often due to lack of early intervention, and their mortality or death rate is also much higher. That's coming out of Sydney, Western Sydney University. So they often, stereotypically, I know, we don't want to paint everybody with the same brush, but stereotypically, they often wait for a health crisis to take action for better health. And I can confess that as obviously a very experienced clinical nurse practitioner in critical care, and with my Western medicine only education, I was doing the same thing. We're very much educated, whether men or women, to wait till we get sick and then go to the doctor and expect them to have all the answers. And I think there's no more obvious time than now to realize that's, not life-saving or life-serving education. So today we're going to be talking about how you can feel better, you can move better, you can live better, and you can feel younger, and offering men and their families to have tools that they can take into their own hands and support their well-being in conjunction with anything else they need to do. No matter, our saying always is on this, in this community, is that no matter where your starting point is on that wellness continuum, where 0 is death and 100 is peak vitality, maybe starting at 30, you can get to 50 or 60. How amazing would that be by adding these nutrients into your life? So most people don't know that they can improve their energy levels, they can get better performance, they can look and feel younger. And some people are concerned about Western medicine and some of the drugs and the side effects, which is in our face in the news every day right now. And there can be adjunct or even alternative options for our well-being that we can be in control of. So I'm very excited to host these 5 gentlemen. So we'll just start. On my screen I have Mike at the top. So Mike.
Thank you, Sharon. Good morning to everybody. It's such a privilege to be here and share in this team and in our collective knowledge and experience. And this is my 2nd year, so on the Men's Week Saturday morning talk. So the first question I've been given is here: how did I approach my health in the past? What education did I have about supporting my health as a man? So I suppose, like all other men, all other people, I learned about my health primarily from my father, who, was a man's man. He was generally at work when I woke up in the morning, and when I got home of an afternoon, he got home and he was tired. So I don't know if that was the best reference point. Obviously, I went to public school and then high school, learnt in PE and PDHD, I think they call it nowadays, about the body and how it works. It's a complex machine, and you've got to feed it and you've got to work out. But really, no one ever really spoke to me about nutrition and the need to actually constantly be assessing whether I was physically fit and well, and how I was picking against people my age and my peers and that. So really, my health has been a bit of a bumble journey. I actually, at the age of 25, around 25, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, but it wasn't severe enough to need medication. And obviously around that age, Rachel, my beautiful wife, and I were starting a family. So some of the conventional medications weren't really conducive to that. So I went in for many years, working 2 jobs and living with an autoimmune disease until I had a crisis. So really, I wasn't seeking education. I was learning about my body, what I could eat, what I couldn't. But I really didn't have any good professional, or no one was walking the journey beside me, apart from, going to my doctor when something was really wrong. And obviously Rachel being a nurse. But I think, that's really it. I was pretty much unaware.
So tell us about that crisis that, I imagine that might have been what motivated you to take a more broad look at what you could do.
Yeah, certainly, Sharon. So, um, I, I've my whole life, pretty much working life, I've worked two jobs. I've been an on-call firefighter, and I've either been, I'm a fitter machinist by trade, but I worked for the public service for 13 years, and then went back to my trade. But I actually, and this is interesting for men, you might be able to associate with this. When I left the public service, I went back to my trade, and I was quickly promoted to a manager's job. Now, I think I was a really competent worker, but as a manager, I struggled. I found it quite stressful, and I didn't have the additional support, not only for my body and nutrition, but my mind. And stress was something that it triggered my autoimmune disease, and it actually led to a point where, and the dissatisfaction with my role, I was losing sleep. I stopped working out. I wasn't eating correctly. Nothing made me happy. I got to a really bad place. And I started experiencing pain in my tummy. And I went to my GP. She said, look, it's stress and anxiety. So she started to medicate me for stress and anxiety. The pain got worse and worse, spread from my tummy down through the tops of my legs, through my buttock, into my groin. And I kept seeing her, and she said, no, it's stress related. I'll increase your medication. It got to a point where over a Christmas period, I was having 5 hot baths a day. Every 4 hours, I was taking Panadol and Nurofen. I presented to the emergency department, and they discovered I had a mass in my tummy, which basically was related, but I developed an abscess, and my small bowel had twisted itself into a knot about the size of a grapefruit. So anyway, I had trauma surgery in Sydney. They removed that about 40 centimeters of my bowel, my small intestine. So that was my first bowel resection. So that was related to, but the person I trusted to walk beside me on the journey, and the person who might have been able to intervene really quickly, didn't pick it up. And so I ended up having my first bowel resection. And when I did see my doctor, she basically said to me, it was more or less, in her words, it was my fault because I didn't adequately describe my symptoms. But then not 18 months later, I actually had a health event relating to that previous procedure, where I tore my esophagus, and my stomach acid came out of my stomach and visited my heart and my left lung. So it basically, Rachel has a saying, intervention leads to intervention. Sharon, I'm sure you know, as a nurse. That was my wake-up call. I ended up in John Hunter, large regional hospital, a big trauma hospital, and had a surgeon saying to me, you'll never work a physical job again. You'll probably never eat solid food, and you'll probably need oxygen therapy to keep your saturation levels up well enough. So that was his best guess at the time. And so that was my aha moment.
Yeah, you can laugh now, right? When we look back at what we need to be faced with before we look outside the box, kind of thing. And I just want to also ensure people that anything we're talking about here isn't something that's a cure for any disease or a replacement for medical care. You can see at this stage, when we lack that education, not that who knows if you would have made a difference otherwise starting this earlier. We don't know, but by the time we get to this kind of situation that Mike's describing, we need the best of both worlds, and that's what we're about to talk about. So, I know your wife Rachel, obviously was highly concerned, and she went on a search for support. Tell us about that.
So that's correct, Sharon. So Rachel, so by this stage, I'd spent about nearly 3 months in John Hunter Hospital, and Rachel actually, it's interesting how it works. Rachel had many years before nursed an elderly patient who had really bad arthritis, and her hands were all crumpled over, and she was saying to Rachel, look at my hands, and her hands were opening up normally, and she had no pain. So Rachel was introduced to the Manatech technology several years beforehand. Now, with me being in hospital, Rachel took time off from her job as a nurse, and she felt that she needed some support. And so Rachel decided that she was going to reach out and find out about Manatech and the glyconutrients, and she just knew a little bit about them. And she said, I need these for myself. So she actually went on an adventure, on a journey, and she actually got in touch with Rod Gilchrist, Platinum Presidential. So she actually got in a car and went for a drive all the way up there and met him in person. And so I think while she was up there, he ministered to her and he loved on her. And they came back with a plan. And actually the plan was to bring back, I believe, for myself. But by that stage, I couldn't eat. My esophagus was not repaired. And so I could only get in nutrition or food through a tube that went up through my nose, down through my stomach, and then into my small intestine. And so for 14 hours a day, I was on what they call enteric feed. I used to sleep with a pump, or I'd go out driving with the pump beside me. So that was the only way I could eat, was to have this nutritional support in a bag for 14 hours a day. So with some advice from Rod and some other people, we actually introduced those products into my feed. So I used to, every 4 hours, I had to flush my line. So I actually would I would take small doses into my enteric line. And so that was my introduction. So I got the support, not Rachel, initially.
That's amazing, isn't it? And just also, we're in the wars in health globally right now, and in particular in Australia. The powers that be, the health policymakers and the regulatory bodies, are quite frightened of what's new. And so what we're talking about today is science-based nutrients. Okay, so we're not talking about a medication. We're not talking about something that requires, a doctor's advice to take. It's like, if you had two apples in front of you and they're grown under different conditions, they'd have different levels of nutrition. So here we're talking about science, quality assurance that what's in there is in there. So it's not like a hit and miss or a Russian roulette, whether I'm getting the nutrients for my body. So this is what Mike's talking about. And again, we've also had some communication in the past week that haven't analyzed thoroughly, but we need to be really careful in telling our stories and mentioning any disease names, because the truth is we're not about curing diseases. We're about giving our body the ability to be the best it can with whatever circumstance it's facing. So that's exactly what Mike is talking about. I imagine by that time you didn't have really any hesitation or concerns about saying yes to your wife.
No, that's right, Sharon. So really, I received the best care that you can in Australia. I'm so grateful to be in this country and to be in the public health system. Was exceptional, the care, and I have the highest regard for everybody seen and unseen in my care through that period. So the truth of the matter, at that point in time, I was on the best enteric care, which was a bag feed. It was about a litre, and it had every ingredient. It was basically like if you had, it's probably like a baby food, or even I'm just trying to think.
It's like Ensure kind of idea.
Yeah, it was just like a whole thing. But what was happening is I wasn't putting on any weight. I was down to about 64 kilos, and I wasn't putting on any weight. So I was, they might call that a failure to thrive. And even though I was taking a liquid in this, in my nutrition, it wasn't coming out like a liquid. It wasn't very pleasant at all. But when I started on our products, and this is the truth, I had a return to normal. My body started to actually work with the system, and I actually started to gain weight, and I actually started to pass, what was going in was coming out a lot easier. And so it wasn't coincidental. Nothing substantial had changed around that. It was only the introduction of the products and the nutritional benefits and technologies behind those. My body actually, it started to recover. So that previous prediction that I wouldn't go to work, wouldn't be able to do physical work, wouldn't be able to eat food, all of a sudden my body started to rebuild itself. And that's my story. The introduction of those products was amazing. It actually helped me start to rebuild and become the person I am again today.
Mm. Yeah, I know had the privilege of meeting you and watching some of those phases, and you're thriving now. So the failure to thrive is gone. We can announce that Mike Davey is thriving. So I'll come back to you so you can have a final few words at the end. But thank you very much for that story. And Oscar.
Hi, Sharon. Good
Hello.
morning. Hi. Thank you for you Sharon, you and Gary and Diana for doing what you do. You're reaching out and touching lives, and you're blessing people, and you're bringing happiness into their lives too by sharing all that amazing stories, and particularly with people who come in and have journeyed through this health and wellness. And we are forever also grateful for Menatech. They're truly a Joseph company of provision, and they're reaching out also, giving that life to the populace, to the world. And we recognize also our leaders, who Patsy and Phil, and who enrolled us onto these products and to this company, and our Silver Presidential, James Hannon. I would like to chat with men. You know, it's really good to talk with them, and to sit down and maybe over a fire or someone and talk their language. Men just don't want to listen to sciences and things like that, and it's too much into their minds. They want to talk about something that's there. So I'm going to ask my mates out there, how are you traveling, mate? And have you got good traction? As your gear and clutch and so on, are they effective, and are they efficient? Are you producing powerful grunt and torque? And how is your speed? Are you taking off like in 4 seconds? You're hitting 100 kilometers an hour, and does it hum? And is it very efficient? Has it got good fuel usage? And how is the synchronization of the gears and everything else, or the parts of the machine that's running? Are they humming? Are they in harmony? I like to talk with men that way, because that is the body. And when we talk to men, let's talk about that which is their everyday thing. You know, how the car works. And do you check that very regularly? And do you put it into service regularly so that it could hum and it is harmony and it's working like clockwork? Do you stop immediately and when you hear a little noise, open the hood, go into the bonnet, pull out something else, and come in and have a good look at it. Take your torch out if it's night. And do we do that to our bodies? Men, we forget that our bodies need to be in harmony. They need to be synchronized. They're going to be well oiled, and they're going to run and hum. They're going to have the power. They're going to have the torque, you know, and they're going to have the grunt. And men out there who got the machinery and everything else, they would hear a little noise and they'll stop the machine. But that little noise in our bodies, and we don't stop. We keep going. And there's
That's great. Oscar, I'll just jump in. That's a perfect analogy. And as a woman, I wouldn't have thought of that. I get scared looking under the bonnet of the hood. So, you know, what happened for you? Let's redirect here.
Yep, sure. I was born and raised in Papua New Guinea, so I grew up in everything that we produce, we eat, we live next to the sea, so seafood is part of our diet. And I arrived here and things changed.
Yeah.
And I realized that I need to do something different to what I have done before. So 2003, 2002, 2003, I was doing a lot of training and traveled length and breadth of Queensland. And I found that I started to pick up things that I never experienced before. And it is my allergy that was slipping. I'm getting hit by allergies that are coming in from some triggers that are out there, which my body was not used to. When the pollens are out, I'm a mess. But at the same time, what I was doing and preparing my lists and so on, I'm starting to find that I'm slipping in my mind. I got this fog, and I'm not concentrating well. I couldn't write up my lesson plan. And I'll be traveling from up north on the Bruce Highway, and I'd fall asleep. I have this little switch off, and I jump up, and I realized that I could be off the edge, or I would be flying through the back of a truck and car, and that really went bad for me. 2003, my aches and pains, all my bodies, it was so bad that I cannot walk up my stairs. I didn't know what it was. I never experienced something like that before. So we got introduced to 2000 in 2004 with Manatech, and Phil and Patsy brought and came and sat with us, and we had a chat. And prior to that, we were already on vitamins and supports like that, with Sandy being a guru in that area. So we started to delve into that, and my interest was, and my question for me is, why do I need to do that? Because I'm eating what I need to eat, though I'm not eating what I had in Papua New Guinea. 13 months later, being on the products, we got in 2004. We only had 4 products. The pack, you got to start a pack, and it came in and sat there. And Sandy said, "I want to know more about it." Being an analyst, she was going to go right through the whole thing. And I waited and I waited, and I said, "If you're not going to open up, I got to have it." So anyway, we got started. I got started, and I was like crawling up and down the ladders. I was in pain. 13 months later, being on these products continuously, I was in the shower, and I smelled DDT right around me. Once you smell DDT, and once you're exposed with DDT, you never forget it. And it was just all over me. I could smell it, and I wondered, where did it come from? Because I've left DDT years and years ago. In Papua New Guinea, they sprayed DDT to control in the Anopheles mosquitoes, so that it controls malaria outbreaks. And they would spray it in the town. They're coming with a fogging machine, and the whole place would be fogged out. And we as children think it's fun. We play hide and seek, And so it's coming through my body. And a week later, I was sitting down having a cup of tea. I couldn't taste the tea. And then all of a sudden, I could smell this chemical. And I thought, I know these chemicals. I said to Sandy, "I know this chemical. What is it?" So she came and have a sniff, and she said, "Yes, it is a chemical." And I said, "I know what it is now. It's 2,4,5-T, and we were 2,4,5-T and 2,4,5-D. Those who don't really know what that is, the active ingredients of Agent Orange, and it defoliates anything that is green. They use it to defoliate jungles and forests. And in those days, when I was an agriculturalist, we were training, there was nothing about how you would protect yourself. We never wore any protective gear and gloves. And our senior lecturer then, when I was going to agricultural college, he said, "This is for plants. It doesn't affect human beings." And so it was in me. And now it's coming through. What hit me was that these chemicals were not there. It was there so many years ago. Why is it coming through, and why is it am I experiencing this? And in our education and learning about what the products do, and particularly one of the messages is that please clean me, rather than, and there's another one, regulate me and feed me and all that stuff. And it cleanses the whole system out. And it dawned on me, and I thought, well, am I cleansing? Am I pushing these things out of my body? And years, months and years later, I've still got little bits of something coming through. Now, these chemicals are residual. They embed themselves into the cell walls. And then what happens is, over time, as you get older, it starts to break down the cellular structure. It affects the performance of your cells. And now this is coming through. And I really just give thanks for this product that's come through with me. I am, right this moment in time, I'll be turning 73 in September, and I am chasing my grandchildren. I'm doing all those things where I don't think I would be doing this now with my body, and many of the researchers are saying that because of these chemicals and agrochemicals, that it comes out in the form of some neurological problems with men and who are exposure, and not only men, there are women also who are exposed to this. So I am really grateful for that.
Mm. So, Oscar's brought up another good point. It's good we've got all these amazing men here today, is that, nutrition helps the structure and function of your body, right? At the very cell level. If your cells don't have everything they need, then your whole body can't function optimally. And food is part of the solution. And this insurance to have the best food possible with these science-based nutrients is the next step in taking care of your cells. And that's exactly what Oscar's talking about. Oscar, that's fantastic to see you and welcome you in a time of such vitality in your, what do we call it? It's not our senior years. I'm looking because I'm heading there. I'm looking for a nice term. If anybody has
the mature years.
Golden.
The mature years. Mature golden years.
I don't know what it is, but thank you. I'll come back to you, Oscar. Thank you so very much for that. And Paramel, there you are.
Hello, Sharon.
Hello, Paramel. Lovely to have you.
Thanks for you and Gary and Diana for putting these calls together. They're always very valuable. Yeah, so where do we start? I started with the products about 20 years ago. My partner, Amanda Keeney, who some of you probably know, she was looking to Manatech as a business. But at the same time, a friend of mine was into another nutritional company who was raving about their products. And I said, I want the best products. So we thought, well, we'll look at them both. We went to a lot of talks about the products. All the Manatech talks were about the science and how great the product was and the information, the technology and that sort of thing. The other company was talking about the marketing, the payment, the this, the that. What are the products like? Oh, the product's good. Don't worry about that. They're all good. And finally, I realized that no matter how good this other product was, they were never going to have glyconutrients. And that was the key difference. So I said, okay, yeah, we'll go with Manatech. And of course, we haven't looked back. I had no health conditions. Basically, I was basically healthy. I've been training in martial arts for almost 40 years now. But I wasn't thinking about health. My training was just, that's what I did. I trained. So education on health and as a man, nothing. I don't remember getting any single thing about men's health at all. So I just trained and that was it. Ate a lot, trained a lot, it was fine. It wasn't until the later years that I started looking at things, getting a bit more aware and that sort of thing. Although I was healthy in training, sinuses were always an issue for me. I always carry a handkerchief. I still carry a handkerchief with me, but something I like. I use a lot of, but we basically take all the products. We have the Core 5, of course. We use the meal replacements and that sort of thing as a treat. Okay, we're not trying to lose weight per se, although sometimes, yes, we do it for that. We use the skincare products. It's like, these products are so good and the technology and the science behind them is so good. Why would you use skincare from another company? Or why would you use some other shake or some? In fact, Amanda Keeney ran out of, because chocolate was everything was on Backer a while ago and she bought another one just to try it. Only use one scoop out of it. It's in the cupboard. It's like, no, we'll just wait for the chocolate to come back. I've actually just come back from New Zealand. I've been over there visiting my mum, and I was there at Christmas time. She had a major health challenge, and we talked to Dr. Nugent about what was going on. He gave us a really good protocol for her. She's 90, almost 92. She did hospital, she did the surgery, all that sort of thing, but we got her on the protocol before the hospital and since then, and her recovery was phenomenal, and no one could believe she's that age. Because she's just running around, she's frustrated she can't climb on roofs and things anymore. So the quality of these products are just phenomenal. In my age group, the guys I've been training with, we've been training together martial arts 30 odd years. I've been taking the Manatech products almost 20. All in my age group, actually they're even younger than me, all these things going on with them, and I'm still in good condition. And I put that down to the long-term benefits of taking these products. You know, I've been taking them for a long time without fail. I had an injury a while ago. I tore my calf muscle at training. I was trying a high kick, boom, bang, dropped me on the floor. Oh no, went to the hospital. Yep, you've torn it. He gave me a script for anti-inflammatories and that sort of thing. Said, you'll be on crutches. It's going to be really painful. I didn't fill a script. Don't advise that for other people, but for myself, I didn't fill the script. I took the product. But within 5 days, I was back climbing on roofs. I was limping, but my body had healed really quickly. And all this anti-inflammatory, the crutches, didn't need any of that. So just what it did for my body, that repair work, I mean, I amped up the and all those sorts of things as well. I don't have any health insurance. For me, the money I spend on my product is my health insurance. That's what I do to give my body, to stack the deck in my favor. I mean, I don't know what the future is going to hold, but I'm trying to stack the deck in my favor to give me the best shot. So even if something does happen, I'm in a better position to repair. I'm talking with my mother. She's, I said, almost 90. She's complaining about getting old. Oh, I hate getting old. I can't do this and I can't do that. I said, Mom, look at your friends, your other age groups who are on walkers and staggering around and can barely lift one foot off the other. And she's running up and down the stairs in a 2-story house every day. I took her to Queenstown. We walked around Queenstown. You know how hard it is to get 10,000 steps a day, you know, when that's what they recommend. We did 7,500 steps one day with my 90-year-old mother walking around Queenstown.
Wow.
You know, it's just phenomenal. And although I don't think she gets that that's what the products are doing for her, I can see the difference they're making for her. So I just make sure she's got.
Can I jump in for a sec, Paramount?
Sure.
Did you notice any difference in your performance, or and do you use the sports products at all?
Absolutely, yeah. Like when I first started, actually interesting, the first talks, everyone talked about how much energy they get when they take the Manatech products. And I thought, oh, that's great. That sounds good. Because I was waking up in the morning feeling like an elephant was on my chest. I was just tired. And about 2 weeks or 3 weeks of taking the products, I was tireder than ever. I'm like, where's all this energy that people is talking about? But my body was just coming to terms and rearranging and stopping running on adrenaline. And then the energy levels really picked back up. Definitely made a difference with the sports products. I mean, at my age group, I'm doing a combat class with all the young fellas, and I'm in there hitting the bags and kicking it as hard as they are. Certainly make a huge difference to the performance. You know, I was maybe 30 years ago when I was training, I was using steroids. So I got really big and strong and fast, and that was really good. And then I stopped training with that. And the depression, I stopped training, you know, the hormonal system depresses and that sort of thing. So when I look at Manatech, I started getting back that same energy and vitality I had back when I was doing that, but in a much cleaner, healthier way. And it's interesting, as a young fella, we never talked about health with men. You don't do that. But now with my age group, all the men that are there, I say, especially these guys, we start talking about, oh yes, I'm looking at this and I'm researching that, and I've got this and I've been to this doctor's appointment, and I'm saying, well, I'm taking the Manatech products, and some will, some won't.
Yeah.
But,
it is that overriding education that we have, that food is enough. It has a lot to pay for, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then sadly, but anyway, people wake up in their right timing and realize, for me, and even with all my education, it was a wake-up call for me as well. So you can't, we just have to understand people where they're at. So I'll come back to you, Parimal. That's a wonderful story. Good news there. And ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, we don't use these for any treatment or any replacement of medical care. We're talking here about nutrition for cellular structure and function. Graham.
Morning, everybody. Thank you, Sharon and Gary, and for putting these on. My background is I come from a riverina out there, and no one talks about their health until something happens, until it's too late. And I moved down here. I'm in Canberra now, and I'm living down here, but I've still got family that live down there. And there's been some interesting things happening just recently, and I'll tell you that at the end of what's going on with some of the family members. But anyway, I moved down here and I started in the construction industry, and I was working pretty hard. And then I met my ex-wife now, and she's got a daughter that had a disability. And I come from a background of 4 sisters, and I was the only guy in the family. So didn't talk much about nutrition or anything. I just ate what mum put in front of me, loved desserts. That's where I grew up. But because I was always working hard, I didn't put the weight on, and moved down here. And then when I met this lady and this girl, I'm going, well, I've never come across these type of things before. What do I do? Like, how do I handle this? I would go to work and come home, and they'd both be sitting at the table crying. And I didn't know how to handle this. My partner at the time, what she was doing is she was searching, and that's I am very grateful that she had the mindset to go out there and look to see what was out there that could help my daughter. And she come back to me one day and she told me about an osteopath, and I'd never ever seen an osteopath before, and I had no idea what they did. But I just knew how much it was costing me. It was costing me a lot of money each month to try and keep this little girl on track. And anyway, after every time she'd seen him, she'd come back a totally different person. And from going from crying and just being constipated and cranky all the time, which then transferred to my ex, which then was transferred all onto me when I'd walk through the door at the end of the day. We all know what that's like, guys. You come home at the end of the day, the last thing you want. Used to keep telling me all the time, I hate confrontation. I go, I don't hate it. I just don't want to deal with it at the moment when I walk through the door. And anyway, what happened was I went along to this osteopath, and I'd never dealt with any of that stuff before or seen any of that before. And he said, he put his hands on her head, and she went from crying to laughing in front of me. And I just said, wow, whatever you did, I'm happy to pay for you to do whatever you just did then. I've never seen that before in my life. And he said to us, he said, look, he said, I was in the States, and he said, I've come across something that might help your daughter. He said, I don't know, but he said, it might help her. So we've just grabbed it with both hands and said, okay, yeah, no worries. And this little girl couldn't even stand up. She couldn't walk, couldn't talk, was having seizures. You couldn't take her out anywhere, because if you took her to a shopping centre, what would happen is if someone said something behind her or there was a loud clap, she would have a seizure, and just whole body would freeze, and that would be it. And so anyway, he said, oh, look, I recommend we try this. And I said, oh, okay, great. I reckon, yeah, that's a great idea. So took her home, and here she's a girl that, to sit her up, what we had to do is, now she was 18 months old. She couldn't walk, couldn't talk. Okay, she was having seizures, clenched fists, all that was there. And so what we did is we'd sit her on the floor, and you'd sit beanbags around her to try and sit her up. And we started giving her this product. And the product that we're giving her were the glyconutrients. We only got it in capsule form at that time. So what we had to do is we had to break the capsule open, put it into a food, and then give it to her that way. And it was very remarkable what happened. Now, I never believed in miracles, but this was an absolute miracle. And the miracle was someone took the time to tell me about this technology. And I want all you men out there to know that there's people out there that don't know about this technology. Please speak up. Don't be afraid of what they tell you back. Give them the opportunity to make a decision for themselves. And what happened was she went from a girl that couldn't walk to talk in a very short period of time. And a lot of people go to me, that's just crazy that it happened. And I go, well, it happened that day. It was Christmas Day. And me and my ex were sitting there on the lounge, and here she's laying on the floor, and she wobbled to her feet, and she took 3 or 4 steps towards us. And we both just stopped and looked at each other and went, did you see what just happened? We couldn't believe it. She was starting to walk. She then just started to talk. And the changes in her were just so dramatic that people around us could see what was going on. And they're going, what are you doing? And we said, well, we're not doing anything. What we're doing is we're giving her this nutrition, and the body's doing what it needs to do to work at its optimum. That little girl now is 25-year-old, and she's still got a lot of problems that she's working through. But you know what she does for a hobby? Weightlifting. She goes along to a gym and she's weightlifting. From a girl that couldn't walk or talk, she's now an asset in the community. She's studying psychology. And all it was is it took one person to tell us about the product. And coming back to how I got involved with this and how we sometimes don't talk to people. I've got a 58-year-old cousin who I love dearly. He's just been diagnosed with and he's got the fast moving one. So I've gone from seeing a guy that was 6'4", built like a brick, played football. He was a man that you could go to. And as my sister said, when my father passed away, Ian was the guy that gave you a hug like Dad used to. And I'm so grateful that I've got the opportunity to sit down with him and talk to him about what we have. Now, what he does with that is not my concern. My concern is taking the opportunity to tell him about it. It is up to him to what he does. But don't be.
And Graham, how's it affected your health? Seeing.
For everyone that knows me and in my past, I mean, I left school at 16. I was 18. I'm diagnosed. And I've still got it. I battle with it every day. I'm somebody that I can go from doing one thing to another thing, and just the focus is really difficult. I now teach high risk stuff at a CIT, Canberra Institute of Technology. Okay, I teach people how to scaffold and things like that, all because of these products and what they do. I don't go a day without missing them. I absolutely love, because of my hormones and my body is all over the place. And I'm always under a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. And that's only stuff that I put myself on. But if it wasn't because of these products, I couldn't deal with what I deal with and operate the way I do. And I'm so grateful that someone took the time. So don't be afraid of speaking out. That's what I'm saying to me, because there's so many people out there and that just need to hear about this technology that we have and we're blessed with. And as you're saying, Parimal, we have the science. We have the validation. It's not just somebody talking about marketing. We actually have the science and the validation behind us to prove that what we have actually works. And against the body, when you give it what it can do, you give it what it needs to do, and it'll do miracles. And there's not a day goes past that I don't thank the Lord for these products and what they've done for me.
Thank you, Graham. Wonderfully said. And what a powerful story, brought tears to my eyes. People out there, these everyday people like what we've described today, like ourselves, are praying for what we have. And it's hard for people to realize. I mean, it's hard for me to realize as a health professional how different this is, and how, I said, well, if this is so amazing, why haven't I heard about it as a health professional? And people will think that way. And I understand that. I've been through that, but having the courage to take a look at the information. The person who introduced me said, listen, there's no pressure. Take a look at the information. It makes sense to you, great. If not, there's no harm done. And so I thought, well, I can't say no to that. And so I listened to the information, and I can remember it as if it was yesterday, and it was 22 or 3 years ago. And it was like, wow, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't know that our food didn't have as much nutrition. And I didn't know about nutritional glyconutrients. So, and they've changed my life. They've changed my family's life, just like these gentlemen are saying. So I'd like to call our last guest, Gary. So Gary, tell us your story. As a man, what was your education about health?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say what an incredible call this has been. It's just awesome. And going way back, Graham's story, I remember it clearly back you know, 20 years ago, one of the driving forces of me saying this is something that we just have to get out there and share. It just still brings tears to my eyes. And I've got your questions here. How did you approach your health in the past? Well, I grew up on the English health diet. I clearly remember my grandparents having toast and dripping, Sunday roast, Yorkshire pudding, you know, fish and chips. It was the English health diet. So I grew up on that. I started skydiving when I did my first jump when I was 16, and that took me into, you know, an amazing social scene and everything. And I learned how to party. And so I decided to do an honours degree in partying. And I went to Nottingham University and did a 4-year hardcore partying degree with a bit of studying on the side. So health-wise, I mean, food, and it was just, you know, living at university. I lived with 3 other guys, and nutrition and health, and it didn't come into it, just wasn't a consideration at all. As I got more seriously into skydiving, it still was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, it was a wild, wild time in the 80s. It was brilliant. Then I had a head-on with a 40-ton truck in 1984, and that put me in hospital for a year. I was in traction for 4 months. I really smashed my body up, particularly my right leg, which they wanted to amputate for 3 weeks of waving the papers around in front of me saying, look, there's nothing we can do with it. Sign here, we'll have you out of here in 10 days. And I said no, and thank goodness. So anyway, I started my first skydiving business when tandem skydiving was invented in hospital while I was in traction. I thought, I'm never going to go back to work again. I want to do my own thing. We've got this new thing going. I'm going to start my own business when I get out of here. That's what I'm going to do. So I did that. It was really successful. Still no interest at all in health. I was healthy, fit, active, could easily party, you know, 24 hours non-stop, all-nighters, regular training in all-nighters. And cut a long story short, moved my company to Australia because the weather was so bad, along with the diet in England. So I moved to Australia, and that's when things started to change, because I was very fortunate to be part of I'd already represented Great Britain. So when I got here, I was immediately jumping with the sort of elite jumpers in Australia, and I quickly became part of the Australian delegation, and we went to the World Championships, and along that journey we got sponsorship, and that's where everything changed, because we had a sports psychologist. I mean, we had well over $1 million sponsorship. We had a sports psychologist who heard a guy on the radio talking about natural memory improvement and peripheral vision, and we were doing rapid formation. We have to be competitive, you've got to be doing 35 formations in 30 seconds. It's incredible. And peripheral vision, so money was no object. Let's get this guy in. He's the man that changed my life. And because we were sponsored, we didn't have a lot of choice, but we weren't allowed to drink coffee anymore. We had to drink just water. He got us onto, you know, eating well, and we didn't have, because there was so much money involved, we didn't really have a choice. We had to follow our protocol in terms of what we ate and how we behaved. And one of the things he did, which was a turning point, is he gave me a list of additives. And this was some photocopied list that he got from France or something. It was just really before anyone knew that vitamins and minerals were synthetic. And he gave us this list, which had all the side effects of all the various additives in the food. And, you know, that was a bit of an eye-opener. So I started becoming a bit of a research nut in terms of health and nutrition. And as the years passed, I did a lot of research. I changed my diet quite radically. I actually became vegetarian. And as time went on, I also changed my thinking about the business. And I was looking at various businesses, and I joined a few health-related businesses because I thought put the two together. And one day I went to a meeting and I was sitting next to a guy who was a pharmacist, and he said, "Have you heard of glyconutrients?" And I said, "No," but I had an open mind. I was really interested. So he gave me some information about that, and my eyes started getting bigger as I was reading this information. And I thought, wow, this is really different. This is something that's a major breakthrough. And then, of course, I mean, back then was Graham and Carolyn, whose incredible changes that were happening in Dorton. There were just hundreds of people involved in Mannatech back then that were seeing all these health changes. And whilst I didn't have any health challenges, I took it on as a mission to start changing them. Of course, didn't think it would make any difference to my previous injuries. There wasn't a day go by that I didn't know that I nearly had to have my leg amputated. And you know, it used to be a lot of pain. I just used to ignore it. I still was skydiving, running around busy, but they made an incredible difference to the pain that I had and the mobility in my ankle in particular. And I started noticing those things. Also, you know, when they don't stop you getting a cold, but you can, you know, when a cold's coming along, you get that sort of tingling feeling and a bit of a sniffle, boost up on the next morning, no sign of it, because you can't jump. When you've got a cold, you burst your eardrums. So, you know, when you're competing or something like that, things like that are really, really important. So I'd found something that was a real solution to staying healthy whilst there were no major health challenges. Things like that are really important when you're competing at that sort of level. And I used to do, you know, 17, 18 jumps a day, which was pretty full on, you know, and teaching people and all that sort of thing, had to be really fit. So, you know, it was a long journey to find Mannatech, but once I found Mannatech, that was, you know, you can't argue with the things that we've heard already today, you know, even, and I just love those stories. They're so inspiring. So I would never, ever go a day without the Mannatech products. They're part of my everyday routine. Even though we grow most of our own food, you know, that's how far we've taken this seriously about looking after your health. Because all my grandparents on their, you know, toast and dripping, they all carked it from heart attacks in there, not much older than I am now. You know, they were 65. I never missed an opportunity to share this with people. And one of the things about the business side of it is there's no amount of money that can give you the feeling, if you're the person that told Graham and Carolyn and Sandy and Mike about these products, that's a feeling that no money can give you. I thrive on that. That's probably my main driving force. I mean, my lifestyle is extraordinary, living off the grid. I'm living my dream lifestyle now. So what have I got to say to men about taking care of their health? Don't be a dummy, you know, open your mind, share it with people, you know, take control of your own health. Don't just leave it in the hands of, you know, so many people wait for something, especially men, wait for something to come along and then they trot off to someone else to, you know, fix it for me. And the control is in your hands, and we do have a solution that's got all the science and the backing and everything. It's just amazing. So yeah, don't be stupid and take control of your own life. If it's a control that it's about, then there's nothing better than having it in your hands. And then go ahead and share it with people, because that's where you'll get the full benefits of it, you know, when you change someone's life that isn't as fortunate as you are.
Thank you, Gary. What a full and powerful hour, potent hour that we spent together. But I'll just quickly go around and give everybody a minute to say what's in your heart and what's your advice to men and their families that they love and care for. So we'll go back the same way. So to Graham, what's in your heart to share with other men?
Do something before it's too late. Take action now, and start making a difference. Tell other people about what we have, and yeah, don't be afraid to talk to other people, and take it seriously, because as Gary said, most men wait until something happens and then they'll start to try and do something. Why not prevent it from happening? Yeah, that's what I love about it. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Graham. And Paramount?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of men, you don't talk about sickness being it's a weakness. You don't want to feel weak in front of other people. But I think it's to get across, it's actually a strength to talk about your health and to share something like that. You know, the masculine is mission orientated and goal orientated. Well, make it a goal to share this and educate other men.
Thank you, Paramount. And Oscar?
Yeah, I concur with Paramount. I think with men, stop being one that sits on the fence and see things happen. Dive in. You are a solution-oriented person in your family. Be instrumental in doing that, but you need to educate yourself. Dr. Steve Nugent's got a wonderful coverage. I went in there 2-3 times, and I'm still learning from him. So it really dives into that. Treat your body like you treat your own car. Put it into service. Keep working on it. And if we want to talk to males out there, let's talk blokes' words. Let's use the bloke language. They connect with that. So I started off by saying that. So hey, guys, you have the greatest responsibility for your people, your family, your community, and in the world too, because you also can be able to help a child out there who's suffering, who needs help. And
Thank you. Absolutely. We didn't touch on the mission, did we? So over to Mike.
Okay. I love Oscar's analogy of the car and servicing, and such beautiful wisdom from my brothers this morning. And I just want to reiterate and share. It's just so important. When we get a new computer, we get a new operating system. We started off with Windows, and then we went to, I think, Vista and XP and 7 and Windows 10. So we need to be, I'm just so encouraged by the guys. We need to continue to grow and upgrade, not only in our education and in our health, but even in our mindsets and how we operate. We're not loners. We're not, I remember the image of the solo man, you know, drinking the can, crushing it and going off on an adventure. We don't live our lives in isolation. As an emergency service worker, we have control and influence over those in our homes and those in our families and those in our communities. And it's not right that we sit back and suffer in silence when we all have such similar stories. And so I just encourage everybody, especially not only for this coming Men's Health Week, but, you know, I just want to challenge men to just have those conversations, compare notes. Are you, like Oscar would say, are you full of grunts? Do you have the talk to do what you need to do? Or do you need some enhancement? Do you need a tune up? Is it time that you had your air in your tires checked, or, you know, your oil changed? Have those conversations, really important. In Manatech, we have something amazing, something that not too many other people have at this time. And so even if it's just establishing those relationships, are you okay? How are you going? let's just encourage each other and have those real conversations. But when the opportunity comes up, just share what your life was like before and what your life is like now. And let's walk this journey together, especially through the COVID-19 and the challenges of life. Let's not shrink back and hide in our corners. Let's get help.
Well said. What a glorious hour. Bless each and every one of you. It's been so empowering and so powerful. Thank you. It's really been important.